Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Today we're here to break down the Giants defense on the All-22 film against the Washington Commanders in their unfortunate loss in Week 9 to drop to 2-7. Nick, I want to start with one thing. I feel like two things stood out to me. The first being we criticized back in Week 2 Shane Bowen for his game plan against Jayden Daniels. Soft coverage, not a lot of blitzing, playing off. And then after watching this tape, I kind of thought about it, Nick, and I was like, you know what? I take back my criticism of Shane Bowen. I got to be honest with you, man, because this game, the Giants did the opposite. They blitzed a lot, and they got killed when they blitzed a lot. And I kind of feel like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation against Jayden Daniels when you're trying to scheme to stop this guy. It's a sad reality that I've come to, and I hope I'm wrong about this, Nick. And again, the biggest concern we had with Daniels was the injury situation profile. Can he hold up? Can he play for another 10, 15 years? Can he play throughout one season? But my God, man, I don't know how you stop this guy. You can't blitz him. You can't play off coverage against him. There's no real way to beat him in my mind. The Giants had some stops in this game, Nick, but at no point did I feel like they had control over the game defensively. At no point did I feel like if the Giants can just score here to get a lead, they'll get a stop on defense. I didn't feel either of those things. I felt like Daniels was toying with the Giants. I didn't even feel like watching this game. Washington went through their full arsenal on the offensive side of the ball. I thought they played the game based on the score and based on the game script, passively, very passively, it looked like on tape. And so ultimately, I felt like the defense let them down, but I also felt like there's not really any options to stop this quarterback right now. God, that's scary to say out loud, dude. I am very worried about facing this guy 2 times a year. I can tell you that with certainty.
I think there probably are options, and I don't rescind my criticism from Shane Bowen from Week 2. Now, that doesn't mean I expected him to blitz a lot, but that was Jayden Daniels' second start, and the way that offense was constructed in Week 2, everything was horizontal 3-by-1 sets, just taking advantage of space, taking advantage of the off leverage, and the Giants didn't adjust accordingly, but that was Week 2. This game, the Giants did try to blitz, and they did try to get at the Jayden Daniels, and it was completely unsuccessful. They had 0 sacks on 25 dropbacks. Despite blitzing on like 60% of dropbacks, I think is what NFL Next Gen. Now, I didn't watch this tape though, and look and be like, wow, the Giants are really selling out to blitz all the time. That wasn't really my interpretation of the tape. Now it says 60%, and they did try to blitz a decent amount. It didn't really work. I think we should start though with the Giants. Look, they're getting besmirched right now for not getting any of this sacks or the pressures that we've come accustomed to seeing from this Giants defense. But holy shit, dude, there was like 6-7 man protections at every single drop back, and it was all from condensed formations. And Washington used condensed formations to their advantage here. And what I mean by condensed formations is either the tight end, if he was split off, or the innermost wide receiver. They would be on the outside shoulder of Brian Burns. They would be on the outside shoulder of Azeez Ojulari. They would be on the outside shoulder of Tomon Fox. And on every passing play, those players would chip. So it was almost like a 7-man protection on every single play. You could say 6.5 or 5.5 or whatever, because those players were impeding Brian Burns and they were impeding Azeez Ojulari. And when your defense is predicated on wide-angled rushes and winning high side, and you have to account for a wide receiver who is now in your way, that is going to give such an advantage to the offensive tackle to block you and to remove you. And it puts such an onus on the Giants, those Giants edge rushers to win in another way. And the defense is constructed for them to win wide when it is 3rd and 8 and when it is 2nd and 9. So it was like a confluence of a couple different things that led to this 0 sack effort. And it wasn't just the Giants suck at rushing the passer or Jayden Daniels is great. I do think Jayden Daniels is great, but I know freaking Cliff Kingsbury deserves a ton of credit, man. He has done such a good job putting Jayden Daniels in a place to be successful and to not put too much on his plate, that he's sitting back there half injured or whatever the hell he is at this point, taking hits. So mad credit goes to the offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, and Jayden Daniels is just a flat out star right now. But the Giants pass rush didn't just forget how to rush the passer. A lot of this was game plan specific.
Yeah, they were getting chipped a lot, and Jayden Daniels gets a ball out a lot. And like you said, Nick, the key is you can't really rush Jayden Daniels, pass rush Jayden Daniels the way that you rush every quarterback. So you have to make sure that you account for his ability to take off as a runner at all times. And that's something that will be the case. And I didn't mean to say that he's already this star player. First of all, I want to make it clear that teams, once they get 8+ games of film on a quarterback, can take away a lot of the concepts. And Jayden Daniels we'll see if he can play as well next year as he does this year. Second, I didn't mean necessarily that he's so great. I meant more that he's so difficult to game plan against. That's where I'm at with it. It's really that. It's that as a coordinator, it is really difficult. It's almost pick your poison. I saw multiple plays. The Giants blitz Drew Phillips off the corner. Jayden Daniels looks like a cool, calm, collected operator in the pocket as he sidestep jukes the pressure and then just takes off into the vacated area for a 14-yard gain. Jayden Daniels is doing a much better job now than he did at LSU at all, because we watched a shit ton of his tape, dude. We watched Neighbors tape and then we watched his tape. We're watching double LSU essentially, right? And we even watched Brian Thomas. So now we're just watching more and more LSU. We're seeing the same plays over and over. He did not protect his body well at LSU, specifically in the first half of last season. He's done a much better job protecting his body in the 2 games I've watched this season, getting out of bounds, sliding, doing different things to not take massive hits, and evading defenders in a lot of ways, avoiding massive hits as he goes out of bounds. So he's done a much better job there. I just personally, when I watch this dude, I feel like it's very rare that I see a quarterback more effort that makes it look more effortless than this guy, from his release, which is wildly effortless. And we noted that in his LSU tape, to how he deals with pressure, dude. It is an effortless overall, I guess, what's the word? An effortless operation. There you go.
Yes.
Do you agree with that watching this guy?
I do. He's very impressive. I would be ecstatic if I was a Washington Commanders fan, but instead I'm a New York Giants fan. I cover the New York Giants, and I have to watch this quarterback go up against the New York Giants twice a year, and he has 2 wins over the New York Giants. First time the Giants have been swept by Washington since 2021, and then prior to that,
Giants
I think
won 8 of their last 10 games against Washington. They've dominated this rivalry. What changed? Oh, I don't know. The quarterback. Like, it's so freaking obvious. Like, I do want to give Kingsbury's credit, and they've done a lot of good things around it. None of this is possible if Jayden Daniels wasn't on the board at 2. Literally none of it. None of this would be happening.
100%. And also, what Kingsbury is able to do with the threat of Jayden Daniels' legs as a runner. This rushing attack is so fun
so hard to
watch,
stop.
man. You got crunch plays. You got dart. We saw a lot of crunch with Bobby Johnson when he was our offensive line coach. Now you get it with the trap and the wham block. You got dart plays with the backside tackles pulling. He's leading. You got the zone read. You got Austin Eckler motioning every which direction. There is such pressure on the linebackers, man, and Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden in this system to read their keys and stay disciplined and not over pursue when you have that threat of Jayden Daniels. And I got to say, man, those backside edges, Brian Burns and Azeez Ojulari both did a phenomenal job keeping Jayden Daniels in check. Whenever it was a zone read, they did not bite. They respected the threat of Jayden Daniels, and they did not allow Jayden Daniels to get going as a rusher. So that's one thing I want to say about the edge rushers. But holy shit, watching this and watching some of these run designs, I was like, man, I would not want to be a linebacker defending this. And I actually felt like Bobby Okereke had one of his better games meeting these pulling backside tackles or these pulling backside guards at the line of scrimmage, positioning himself in a physical manner to get his shoulder into the backfield, spill to the edge rusher who was disciplined enough to stay where he was to make a tackle for a loss or a stop at the line of scrimmage, as Pro Football Focus would quantify it. So I know it sounds weird. Like, it sounds like I'm praising the defensive line, and that's kind of awkward since they didn't get any sacks and they had only 8 pressures in this game. But dude, they're tasked to do a lot, and I don't think they were necessarily the issue. No. The back end of the defense, we'll talk about that in a little bit. A lot of mistakes back there, dude.
Ton of mistakes happening back there. And I thought you broke that down perfectly, Nick.
Thanks, man.
And I think that's something you could only see when you watch the tape, because to our eyes, or to the eyes of just after the Bucks, it's like, oh my God, the Giants pass rush was a disaster in this game. It's like when you watch the tape, you realize, 1, they were dealing with a lot of different things schematically that made it tough for their jobs. And then 2, again, when you play Jayden Daniels, you're not going to get the pressure you expect to get, because if you do that and you rush him so free, nilly-willy, you're going to get destroyed by him on the ground.
Nilly-willy,
and the Giants did. willy-nilly. I told you I always get those wrong. And there was one play that we'll go about later when I talk about unheralded players, their highest effort. I don't know if he's going to take the mark, but there's a play Micah McFadden made that saved the touchdown in this game when Jayden Daniels decided to run. And it was a really good high effort play. And I've seen Jayden Daniels house those little holes plenty of times. Wow, that sounded horrible at LSU.
I think that was a holding play anyways.
No, you got that. They called that back. I didn't think they called that back.
The one with Micah McFadden on the sidelines where it looked like it could have been like a hip drop tackle.
Oh yeah.
That was
that back. Oh
yeah, that was the callback that was so frustrating because it ended up setting up the 3rd and 18 that was converted because Drew Phillips blew the coverage.
Oh.
And on that play too, I want to bring this up, and we'll go over it a little bit later on the film. Isaiah Simmons is the quarterback spy. Now, this was one thing that Shane Bowen did very well. Now, Isaiah Simmons only played 6 snaps, because I guess there weren't that many situations where the Giants were 3rd and long. But almost every time he was in the game, he was a quarterback spy. He stepped to the line of scrimmage, and he just watched Jayden Daniels the entire time. So it was great to see him adjust, and we all expected it. Like, you're not just going to be like, yeah, Jayden Daniels killed us in week 2. Let's just ignore him again on 3rd and long.
Exactly right. All right, Nick, let's talk about the secondary. You preferenced it a little bit earlier. Not a good game for the Giants secondary on tape. I would say it's probably their worst on film.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about Deonte Banks. Everyone's talking about Deonte Banks. And look, it's inexcusable that he allowed that second touchdown to Terry McLaurin. And if anybody wants to hear a detailed breakdown about the first touchdown, Terry McLaurin did a great job after the game describing his impression of Deonte Banks and how Deonte Banks plays receivers when he is in the red zone, and how Terry McLaurin watched Deonte Banks against Justin Jefferson and Amari Cooper, those 2 touchdowns that were surrendered against Deonte Banks earlier in the season. And he said he saw Deonte Banks as a passive defender, and
in the red zone.
In the red zone. And Deonte Banks allows the wide receiver to gain space, basically, because Deonte Banks doesn't dictate. He doesn't press. He doesn't jam at the line of scrimmage. So that allowed that first touchdown to manifest. Now, after the game, Drew Phillips, I think, said something to the effect that it was supposed to be a switch and that was his fault. I watched it and I was like, it didn't really necessarily seem like Deonte Banks was taken off guard by the fact that, you know what I mean? So again, I'm not in the room. I don't really know. Either way, Terry McLaurin knew exactly how Deonte Banks would play it. He was right, and it ended up being a touchdown. But that second touchdown, it's just like, what are you doing? There's like 6 seconds left in the game. They have 1 timeout. Why would you surrender the outside when you're the deep 4th defender? Just inexcusable. And then Banks is absolutely dreadful and terrible at the catch point when he is in recovery mode, as we said in the live reaction. That was substantiated on the tape. It's something he has to work on. He wasn't great on it in college, but we could just sit here and just trash Banks. I don't want to do that. I think the secondary in general sucked.
I hate using the word trash anyway, because you're not trashing him at all. You're critiquing things that you see on tape. That it's not.
I know. I'm not going to.
I know that you know that, Nick, but I hate it because it manifests in some fans, and then they refer to people as haters and put all these emotional tags on things.
People can be pedantic and be like, "Well, you should have used this." All right, cool. I'm just speaking to the audience, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. But when we critique honestly and objectively on why Deonte Banks has underperformed in his second season, we could do that till the cows come home.
Right.
But the secondary in general sucked.
I do want to say one point on Banks, though, and we will get to the secondary in general, because it struggled in this game. So it's tough for me, Nick, because they drafted Banks to fit what Wink Martindale wanted to do, right? Like, that played a big role in their decision to draft him. Okay. And they don't have that system here anymore. And that's a big problem to begin with. And I look at it the same way I've always looked at this. Wait, sorry. Do you want to say something? Then I'll get to this.
I was just going to say, well, it's going to bleed into another point I want to get into. So you finish your point.
Let me say this first part then.
Yep.
This is just an overarching thing, 30,000 foot view, that I've discussed a lot on the podcast, specifically in the months of April and March. I'm just not a fan of drafting corners with high capital, man. The bust rate of this position is just unbelievable to me. First of all, you're prone to just these lapses in confidence that we're seeing Deonte Banks go through, where if you're not confident at this position, you have no chance, and you become a massive liability when your confidence is shot.
He's confident when everything's going well. Like, you know, he's a big chirper, Deonte Banks.
Yeah, he's not playing confidently right now at all.
Not at all. Not at all. But to me, that's an indictment on him and not drafting a cornerback high, though.
But there's just been so many misses at this position, dude, and so many busts at the NFL level. And we went over it that one time. I'm going to go back this draft season, Nick, and I'm going to take a look at it. And I'm going to look at, we're going to go through the last 10 draft classes, because we know the Giants have certainly got screwed at this position. Baker, Apple, and
No, I
Banks.
get that, but it's the toughest position probably to play in the NFL when all
Exactly.
of the rules are tailored.
That's my point.
Yeah. So
I don't know if I want to use capital on that. I'd rather just get him in free agency.
yeah, I mean, those guys get paid unless you're bringing
Fine. I'll
Xavier
allocate my
Rhodes.
cap there. I am fine with that. Knowing how hard it is to evaluate them in the draft, knowing how hard it is to translate at the NFL level, I want to stop wasting all this premium capital at this position personally. I'm over it. It happens all the time. It seemed like a great pick at the time, Banks. We like the tape, but it's still a corner, and there's still so much risk inherent in this pick. And he could turn it around. It's still early, obviously, Nick, and I'm not making any kind of declaration on him, but it gets to the point, man, where I'm just less interested in. But now there are always those top 10 guys that I'll be interested in, right? Like the Surtain, we knew. We were like, and Surtain and Sauce were like, if that's available, that you can take. There's always a few guys in the class.
I mean, you've got guys like Lassiter this year, Kool-Aid, who's been hurt for the Saints. But I mean, there are plenty of players who come into the NFL and don't play like Deonte Banks is playing right now. I think Deonte Banks still has that talent. What I wanted to get to when it comes to Banks specifically, because I think this was really oriented at him and not Newman and Phillips, who struggled in this game. After the game, Nacho was talking to Ed Valentine, my boss over at Big Blue View, and he was saying, look, there are 3 Giants units: defense, special teams, and offense. And if any of them underperform, we don't win, which makes sense. And that's an indictment on the team. But what Nacho and other defenders were basically telling the beat reporters, I don't think this made the media pass, but what they were telling the beat reporters is the young players on this roster need to be professional. They need to understand, and they need to realize that this is not college. You're not here on scholarship. You're a professional athlete. This is your job. Multiple veteran defenders were saying that. Who the hell do you think they're talking about? Because it's not Newman and it's not Phillips. Those guys are professionals. It's Deonte Banks. So to me, it's incumbent on Banks to stop being a child, stop being petulant, and play the damn sport and put the damn work in so you can be the best version of yourself. And that's not what Deonte Banks is doing right now. At least that's me reading it from the outside. I can't be completely sure. But if I was a betting man, Dan, I think that would be the first player you would look at and be like, grow the up.
Why do you think I'm shaking my head right now? If you know me well, we've done that. We're good friends off the pod, and we've done this thousands of hours talking ball. Why do you think I'm shaking my head at hearing that? It's because we were sold this bill of goods by Joe Schoen, just like we were sold the same goddamn bullshit bill of goods from Joe Judge, that we want to draft the players who are great off the field. We study them. We put in the work. We put in the time, character, leadership, putting all these stupid traits.
Banks was never that guy, though. Banks was never that guy.
But we're supposed to never get these guys again. We were supposed to be done with the Bakers. We were never supposed to get a Baker under Gettleman anyway. But we were supposed to be done with these types of issues of people not maybe wanting it, people not maybe putting all their effort in, like you're suggesting. I'm not saying that you're suggesting it. I'm saying that it's the read that you get. We both know that we're not in the locker room.
From the comments,
that's not supposed to be the problem. This was supposed to be something that was prioritized with Joe Schoen. It's a supposed selling point, to the point it just comes back to it, Nick, where like, I don't buy this ever when this is sold to me. I just don't, and I never will. You have to evaluate each player. I understand that. But this whole smart, tough, dependable bullshit thing that we have going for us doesn't seem to be playing out on the field, right? Like this culture we've built of smart, tough, and dependable. Where is it, right? We're having lapses in the secondary. We're having so many instances of us not being smart, tough, and dependable on the field in the thing that actually matters, which is the games where they're 2-7, right? So it's like, at some point, I don't want to hear the tagline. I don't want to hear about what your supposed culture that you've built. The only real culture in the NFL is winning. That's the only culture that ever appears, ever.
Yeah. You always harp on this point, Dan. Like, culture is important, but if you're not winning, then it deteriorates. Losing is the cancer towards culture, but you want to build a foundation of culture that will allow you to win. I don't think that's complex. But this team does not have that right now because they're not freaking winning for, God, I mean, how long do we have?
For some of the reasons, though, Nick, that's my point. Like, they're not winning, and you can't build a culture unless you win. You're right. And I know this is not like novel to you. I'm not breaking any ground, and I'm harping on this. But my point is, if you're supposedly smart, tough, and dependable, you'd be winning a lot of these games that they've lost specifically because they weren't smart, tough, and dependable. So it just becomes a tagline that should be washed over and not responded to or received from us.
Every team comes up with these cheesy,
stupid taglines.
It's a big part of getting people to buy in.
Right. And I get that. And I understand that this is not we're not the only team putting out this bullshit, pumping it out. But we're supposedly a team that's using it to evaluate players and to find guys. And we're supposedly putting it first. Like, you need to be smart, tough, and dependable to play here. But then we have scenarios that keep popping up where players are maybe not smart, tough, and dependable, because it doesn't really look like Deonte Banks is tough and dependable right now. Smart, I'm not going to get into that. That's not something that I can evaluate. I'm not a coach on the staff, but he certainly hasn't been very tough or dependable yet. Right.
100%,
So,
yeah.
and that's a first round pick. So if you're supposedly putting this out there, you should not be having misses on that regard. You can miss on talent, right? Evan Neal, you missed on that. That's fine. A lot of teams valuated him high. That's a miss on talent. But and he may also, by the way, be a miss on tough and dependable. I don't want to say tough, on dependable, though, because there are some whispers that he hasn't tackled his rehab the way they wanted, blah, blah, blah. But what we can definitely say for sure right now is that Deonte Banks has not been tough and dependable yet for the New York Giants.
This is a situation that a lot of teams run into, right? And we're deviating from the tape a little bit, but look,
it's fine.
Not every uber talented player who tends to fall to you in the draft is going to be the most dialed and locked in individual. And I think that's what Deonte Banks was. I think Banks can be good if he's in the perfect situation, but if that situation again starts to deteriorate, he's going to possibly lose interest and maybe become a malcontent, which I don't think he is that right now, but he's certainly going through something at this moment. And to me, man, like, teams got to make this decision. We saw on Hard Knocks, Joe Shane and Brendan Brown talk about Malik Neighbors in this light, right? They were like, hey, like, how would he react when things aren't going his way? He's not getting the football, whatever. Like, they brought that up. This is something every team needs to contend with, because a lot of these players who are, 5-star or 4-star, they come into college and they might not be the most dialed in dude, right? They're just dominating because they're so much better than everybody else. But when you get to the NFL, you need to understand that this is a profession. This is a profession. You're getting paid a lot of money to do this. You need to work on your craft when you're not in the building. You need to do everything in your power to become the best version of yourself. And it doesn't seem like he is doing that based. And again, I'm ascribing what these veteran defenders were saying towards Deonte Banks because he kind of is the low-hanging fruit. I'm not.
We don't know for sure, by the way. They didn't name call Deonte Banks.
They didn't name call Deonte Banks, but if you're a betting man, who are you going to go with? More than likely Deonte Banks. But my point is, man, I get like where you're coming from with the smart, tough, and dependable, but like I don't read into it a ton. I think they saw Deonte Banks fall to them. And they're like, we need a cornerback. He's very talented. He might not fit the motto to a T, but he's not a malcontent either. So we can bring him in and then we can coach him up. And that to me is a reasonable decision and a reasonable choice for Joe Shane to make. Does that make sense?
It does, but I know what you're saying, but I also feel like they go off script then, because at times they make picks that are just seemingly because they're smart, tough, and dependable in some ways, or fit the system in some ways, or they're need-based picks like Wan'Dale Robinson, right? And they trade back and they take him way earlier than they should. Or, Azudu, which is not, I don't know what he would even fall into, what bucket he'd fall into, but obviously it was a I know more than you pick that isn't working out. And then you just have they're all over the place with this draft, it seems like. And it's getting to a point where like Nick, I was sold that bill with Judge and Gettleman, where like, you know what, one thing we're never going to do here is draft a player who's a malcontent off the field. But the problem is, Nick, like, even if you're saying, and I'm agreeing with you, like sometimes you just have to take the talent and you have to pass up on those things. There is an inherent risk, and it hasn't manifested yet with Banks. So I don't want to put him in this category. But with Baker, they lost a total draft pick because of off-field stuff. With Eli Apple, they lost a complete asset, again, a not top 9 pick because of off-field stuff. And I don't want to lose another one with Deonte Banks, because there's no coming back from this. They can't just keep burning these picks and expecting things to change. It's not a situation where it's like a video game where you lose a life and you can add a life on or it refreshes. You don't get that first round pick back in 2023. You don't get that first round pick back in 2021. You don't get any of these first or 2022 with Neal. You don't get him back. You don't get a redo. You don't get him over. These are guys that need to be core players of your roster, or at worst, what Kayvon gives the Giants, right? Like a solid player every snap. That's at worst. It can never bottom out to this point. And that's the problem that I'm starting to have, because like we're getting too many examples of these starting to pile up.
Hey, I understand the frustration, and I'm not trying to shill for Joe Shane or anything like that, but it's just, I don't think they go into every draft pick and draft decision to be like, well, he's not smart, tough, and dependable, so we're not taking him. Like they evaluate this circumstantially and individually. And when you like Deonte Banks falling to them, I felt like was
It
amazing.
felt like good value.
That was great value at that point based on his tape. Now,
Yes.
there are other things that go into that. And at this point, those other things may be manifesting negatively and having an adverse effect on the New York Giants. I'm hoping he could turn this around. I'm not done with Deonte Banks at this point. But again, he's going through something. And he was just a part of the issues from this game, from week 2.
One final thing on that I just want to close out with, just to wrap it up and put a bow on it and just kind of try to be more clear with what I'm saying here. So I agree with everything you just said. If a talent falls to you, you got to take that risk. You got to take a chance at it. But you also have to understand that if you are selling us a bill of goods of smart, tough, and dependable, and you're selling us this bill of goods, Nick, that you're taking all this extra time that previous regimes have not taken to spend pre-draft visits and to make sure you really get to know these players, then you shouldn't have what you just said earlier, which is a possible, and I'm not saying this is the case, player that's not putting in all the work on and off the field to be the best version of himself. And it doesn't matter if there's talent, because talent won't win out. Because otherwise, why aren't you taking George Pickens over Wan'Dale Robinson?
I think there are huge differences though between George Pickens and Deonte Banks and those types of decisions and what Joe Shane and Brian Dable envisioned for Wan'Dale Robinson in this offense though. Like again, man, like I understand what you're saying. I think you understand what I'm saying. And we're coming at it differently, but like I personally don't read it. Like I understand every team wants people who are going to buy in, people who aren't going to be malcontents when things go wrong.
Right.
But like I don't look at it like, well, again, I'm not rigid with, oh, it's smart, tough, and dependable. That's the only people they're going to go. Of course they're not, dude. Of course they're not. That's just a talking point to get people to buy in. I just don't view it in that manner. The George Pickens thing, that's a very unique case. George Pickens is a different type of wide receiver than Wan'Dale Robinson, and he has a completely different personality and approach. And I think he requires a lot of work to where a team like Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's the perfect location for him because he can handle someone like George Pickens, and he has that type of cachet, and they had the type of locker room. The Giants, this is your first draft. You're going to bring in a guy like George Pickens with Daniel Jones as your quarterback. Like that's a huge risk to take when you're a new general manager and a new head coach. And I get that George Pickens is wildly talented, but I don't think those decisions are comparable. That's kind of where I'm at right now with Deonte Banks and George Pickens for one.
They're not comparable 1-to-1, but they do share one thing in common that I'm getting at here, which is both Pickens and Banks, we are questioning at times if they are giving it their all to become the best possible athlete that they can possibly be.
I don't know if I question that with Pickens. Pickens is much more of a like, oh, you threw it over my head, I'm going to go to the sidelines.
But there were issues on tape with him blocking and stuff like that as well. So it's also, is he giving it his all?
But there's a lot of other things too with him. That's just,
of course, there was more to his profile than Banks. That's for sure. But we've heard Banks talk, Nick, and we've seen the work and we've seen some of the issues. There is definitely reason to have questioned going in if this was the guy, but we're sold this bill of goods that they're spending all this time. So I bought in. I said, okay, Shane's
all this time isn't that much time either though. Like
I know
you don't get that much time. You know, like
I know.
If you get to go to dinner with them, that's like but that's a dinner. Like you could fake a dinner. You know what I'm saying?
You could fake a dinner.
It's tough. It's tough. Look, dude, I get the frustration 100%. I understand where you're coming from, and the Giants suck at the end of the day. So smart, tough, dependable, you can shove it up your ass. Like it doesn't really matter at this point. Like I feel that as well. It's just the Giants needed a corner. He was a very good corner. You're going to draft that cornerback in that spot. You're going to trade up to even do it at that time. Sure. And the fact that right now, since everything has gone wrong for this kid and he's lost his way seemingly, I'm not going to hold Joe Shane's feet to the fire for that pick. There are a lot of reasons to hold Joe Shane's feet to the fire right now. That's not one of them. I'm just hoping that he can turn it around at this point. Well, that's not one of them for the smart, tough, and dependable thing.
Sure.
Me personally, because again, I also don't put as much weight on that smart, tough, and dependable.
Yeah, you see through it. You see it through for what it is. And I think that's
what
fair.
it is. And it's just, it could be boiled down to a very simple, point is just, you want people who are going to buy in. Can Deonte Banks buy in? Yes. Did the Giants envision 2 years after drafting Deonte Banks that they would suck and have 2 consecutive seasons of miserable football? No. Has that led to Deonte Banks maybe losing his way after he's been beat time and time again in a new defensive system? Yes, it probably has, right? Like all of those things weigh on Deonte Banks a little bit. And now it's still incumbent on the coaching staff to get him back on the straight and narrow. It's on Jerome Henderson. It's on Brian Dable. It's on Shane Bowen. But like, I'm not like, hey, You said he was smart, tough, and dependable. Like I just think it's a weird conversation personally.
It is.
And I believe in locker room. Like I've played sports, I've coached sports. Like locker room is vital. Anybody who's played in a sport know how important the locker room is. But the quickest way for the locker room to die is to lose. And the Giants have lost a lot. And that's the situation that they're in right now.
The losing does lead to all these problems. There's no denying it. Like I've always said, winning is what culture is. Losing is what culture is. There's no such thing as building a culture, in my mind, at least, until you're winning.
It's just a foundation. It's a foundation to get the guys to buy in, so they're fully bought in.
Try to get them to buy in.
Yeah,
and you lose it fast when you lose.
Yeah, the fact it just kills it. It absolutely kills it.
But not every athlete is the same, because we don't have these issues with Mike McFadden right now at all.
Yeah.
And we've had some I could pull 100%. Up a play right now where he's giving it his all, highest effort possible. And look, that could be what you said earlier. Micah McFadden wasn't a 5-star, right? He didn't have the world handed to him coming into high school or coming out of high school into college. And, Deonte Banks, I don't think he was a 5-star, actually.
Nah, he was a 4-star, I
think. But going into the draft, he was viewed as a surefire first-round pick versus Micah, who's happy to be drafted on day 3, right? Happy to just get an opportunity. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know, man. All I know is if we keep burning these assets, we have no chance to recover out of this, even if we get lucky at quarterback.
100% agree.
That's the big thing right now. So let's anything actually. That was a
long so what sparked this long conversation that completely deviated from the point of this podcast, but it's still important, was the fact that it wasn't just Deonte Banks who sucked on the back end. Tyler Nubin had like 3 blown assignments.
Worst game of the season for him by far.
But I know Nubin is somebody who is dialed in. Like that dude, you listen to him talk and you're like, this guy gets it. Good head on his shoulders. I think he came out after the game speaking with the media and said something to the effect of like, I lost Terry McLaurin in the end zone. That's on me. Now, Jayden Daniels missed it. Jayden Daniels also missed Luke McCaffrey wide open down the field for like what would have been a 40, 45-yard touchdown. I think that was also blown coverage by Tyler Nubin. And then there was Drew Phillips, who wasn't as bad as Nubin, but that missed tackle on the 3rd and 18, just horrific, right?
Yep.
He had a couple other really nice plays near the line of scrimmage. I just absolutely love watching him in run support. He is the exact defender that every NFL team is looking for right now, and the Giants got him in the 3rd round, so I'm very happy with the performance of Drew Phillips, but this was probably his worst game. And then Cordell Flott.
By the way, before you go to Flott, what Nick means by that when he says he's the exact defender that every defensive team is looking for right now, they're looking for these guys who can play the alley with physicality at that corner position from the nickel and cover, do both of those things. And Drew Phillips has flashed the upside to do both of those things. He didn't have his best game. He also missed the blitz when he got a chance to blitz, and Jayden Daniels just like totally juked him with what looked like.
I don't even know if he juked him. It seemed like to me like Drew Phillips like prematurely jumped, like
I don't think that no matter what Drew Phillips did there, I don't think he was getting Jayden Daniels, is my personal opinion of that.
It is almost like you're with a woman and you're starting to get frisky and stuff happens and things arrive before you plan them to arrive. That was Drew Phillips on that play. Drew Phillips blitzes off the edge. Like, oh, dude, I got dialed in. Jayden Daniels right in my sights. Let me jump at him. And then Jayden Daniels was like, what the fuck? He just like stepped up and right around him. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. And you can have a similar experience. To get this new customer offer from Mint Mobile and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/BBB. That's mintmobile.com/BBB. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/BBB. That's 3 Bs. $45 payment upfront required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower, above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Hey, Giants fans, we've teamed up with Buck Foston to give away exclusive free apparel from hats to premium sweatshirts and hoodies. It's easy to enter. Just follow them on Instagram @_Buck Foston or sign up for the newsletter at buckfoston.com. Next, DM them our 20% discount code BLUE20 on Instagram or through their website's chatbot, and you're entered in the giveaway drawing. You can participate every week and boost your chances by tagging friends and liking posts. 3 winners are picked at random each week. It's simple, free,
and a great way to score apparel from Buck Foston. You must reside in the United States to enter. Terms and conditions apply.
But yes, I know exactly what you're saying. He jumped a little bit too early. I personally think he's not bringing down Daniel. Daniels is so tough to bring down.
He's just tough to locate, man. Like,
he's tough to locate. But yeah, man, I thought it was a bad game from Jason Pinnock as well. I'm losing a lot of faith of Pinnock in this system. I just don't like him in run support. I don't like him coming downhill. I liked him better when he was in coverage last year. So he's just not someone who I view the same way I viewed prior to the season, Nick, as a potential building block.
Lots on his plate. I mean,
yes,
he's only 25 years old too. He's still a very young player, which is exciting, but I agree. There were a lot of plays on tape where he's talking to Drew Phillips, getting him into position. I think what Washington did with their formation, not just how they were running the football as we talked about, which was tough for the Giants to fit, even though the Giants did a solid job doing so. It was the condensed formations and some of those outward bending routes that just found soft spots in the Giants' coverage, because the Giants weren't in middle of the field open too frequently. They did a lot of close. It was 3rd and short. They would do man coverage with the spy. It wasn't anything too exotic from the Giants other than a little bit more of an uptick in the blitzing. And I want to bring up one more defender, Cordell Flott. Look, been hard on Flott throughout this podcast. Had that bad DPI early in the game to put Jayden Daniels in the Washington offense in position to find Terry McLaurin on that first touchdown. But I felt like he was physical for him in run support. A few plays where he was that contained defender, that alley defender, he fit and he stuck Austin Eckler. Now, was it the most powerful hit? No, not necessarily. But all I'm asking for is for him to be in that position to allow the other defenders to rally and make that tackle, and he did that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment as well. All right, Nick, let's dive into some of the film breakdown.
Yes, let's do it. All right. So we are going to start right here, 3rd and 5, 11:52 in the first quarter. I like this play design by Cliff Kingsbury and Washington, and Adoree Jackson gets this PBU on the cross against, I think that's Noah Brown. The throw is probably directly in the sun, it looks like, and Adoree is in great position to just get his hand up there and knock the football away. If you look at the bottom of the screen, I love this little switch release. You have a wider stack at the numbers, and you're going to see the number 2 receiver, Luke McCaffrey, go wide. That's going to create a natural pick. He's actually open on this play. Now, this is man coverage. It's tough for that defender to flow over the top of the number 1's vertical release, but that's a very well-designed vertical shot against man coverage, cover 1, which the Giants are in here. Doesn't matter. Jayden Daniels decides to take the cross, and Adoree Jackson is in position to get a PBU.
Yeah, Giants got a little lucky with this one that Daniels didn't. I mean, maybe it's part of the progression, but just read it, didn't see Luke McCaffrey open.
Yeah, and also, like, you could see what Ojulari and Burns are dealing with a little bit here. Ojulari or Burns just discards Eckler. Eckler was involved a lot in pass protection initially, and then he has to try to get into the throwing lane of Jayden Daniels. And if you look at the other side of the screen, I mean, Azeez Ojulari just gets uprooted by Noah Brown or whoever that is. I believe that's Noah Brown, big receiver.
Yeah, what a play by him. He uproots Ojulari, then gets out to almost make the catch.
Yeah, I know. But Adoree, man, like Adoree still can do this in coverage, right?
Yeah, he still has some sticky coverage reps.
Now we're going to have the McLaurin first touchdown. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Look, Drew Phillips said it was on him. It doesn't look like it's on him. It doesn't look like Deonte Banks is surprised either, but, you know, I'll take his word for it.
Yeah, maybe that's just something that he's sticking up for his teammate who's taking a lot of heat.
Yeah, the way Phillips plays is he just glues right to the hip, and, I mean, that's just a great route combination. McLaurin does such a good job selling this. Just one quick delayed release. Watch those feet, man. Oh, I love good footwork at the line of scrimmage. Oh, yeah. And then McLaurin comes right open. And the throw is a little bit to the inside, but Banks still isn't in phase to make a play on the football.
Yeah, he's nowhere close. And I think it was a great breakdown that McLaurin had after the game about Deonte Banks and just the details that go into why he's such a good receiver, watching all the tape of Banks and finding something that he can take advantage of.
You know, McLaurin takes this personally. Remember, what was it, a year ago? Banks went on and just like trashed Terry McLaurin and watched.
Yeah,
it was very immature. Culture guy.
Smart, tough, and dependable.
Yeah, right. Now, this is just Banks not understanding, I think, the position on the field. Again, he is off. You have another stack. This is to the field side. Far hash. We talk a lot about how the positioning of defenders to the field side is sometimes to the inside to force a really good throw over the top if it is a vertical route. This isn't a vertical route. This is going to be a 9-yard comeback from Noah Brown. And Deonte Banks gets stuck too far inside. It's a good route by Noah Brown, but Deonte Banks, who is the outside defender, is inside of the numbers right now. And Daniels recognizes that and puts the ball right where it needs to be for Noah Brown. And it's just not really in position for Banks. And you can see Jason Pinnock, he's right in the same area as Deonte Banks. And then after the catch, Pinnock goes over to Banks and he's like, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
Yeah. Good point.
So,
that's a good catch by you on film.
Yeah, it's
also a problem.
It's certainly a problem. And again, Banks,
be aware of the details, Banks.
Yes, it doesn't. Yeah, the details, professionalism, a lot of these comments that you're hearing from a lot of the veterans in the Giants locker room, I think you can watch the tape and be the judge on who exactly they're referring to, or you could just pay attention to what's going on too.
Fortunately,
this is a nice play by Dexter Lawrence from the backside. One technique where Austin Eckler, it's a 3rd and 2, or I think no, is this Eckler? I believe it might be Eckler. It could be McNichols, but either way, it's a wildcat type of play, and they pull a backside offensive lineman, and you could just see the line of scrimmage is reset by Dexter Lawrence. He pushes the center so far back, Tyler Biadasz, and then makes the tackle. Banks does a good job filling with Tyler Newman. This is one of the better just like run defending plays. I feel like the Giants run defense wasn't terrible in this game, but everybody's where they needed to be in a 3rd and 2 situation. Should have forced a field goal, but instead they went for it on 4th and 1, and they end up picking it up. I don't have that here. It was just a play action rollout that Jayden Daniels took with his legs.
That was a good example. That play action rollout was of what I was referring to earlier, Nick, on that 4th and 1 of him doing a much better job protecting his body because he gets out of bounds, doesn't take any hit there.
Absolutely. Now here, this nice play design,
absolute seed by Jayden Daniels from an effortless, just the way he throws this ball and the velocity and the ball place, everything about this was a seed.
It's a 31-yard strike on a 2nd and 11 to Noah Brown. Basically ear hold Micah McFadden. I love this little play design too. And just see, right where it needs to be.
It's such a throw. My God.
It is.
There's just not much of a window there.
Yeah, right to the back shoulder.
This ball. You need to rip this thing. Like velocity is the factor on this. Arm talent is the factor on this.
I love how they motion Austin Eckler back to the backfield. And then Jayden Daniels opens up initially, and that just gets Bobby Okereke to expand in that direction. Everybody expands in that direction. Deonte Banks pushes Noah Brown towards the safety. The safety doesn't pick it up, so that forces Micah McFadden to drop to depth, robot a little bit, get underneath, and Micah McFadden does a good job getting underneath.
That's what I said on Twitter. Yeah, I didn't think this was on. Considering the ground he had to cover, I thought Mike McFadden did a good job here.
He had the pace with a freaking wide receiver too, man.
That's an absolute rip of a ball. That's the factor here. It's a arm talent seed throw. Like that's what you get sometimes.
It's insane. Here's that holding penalty that I was talking about.
This is the McFadden one I wanted to discuss. Great effort from McFadden.
Yeah, McFadden's a good football player. He's a good football player.
Jayden Daniels housed this almost every time we watch it on tape at LSU. That's the difference between NFL speed at defense and college speed. Like even Mike McFadden is able to do this, but he still takes a wild amount of effort from McFadden. As you can see, he's pulled out a little bit toward the other side.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great play design again. You're going to have 4 eligible receivers to the field side, and you're going to bring Luke McCaffrey in motion, and he's going to become the number 1 wide receiver at the snap by going wide of, I think that's Terry McLaurin. And it causes a confusion. It causes a coverage confusion. Drew Phillips comes over. He starts pointing. Him and Deonte Banks are not on the same page. Luke McCaffrey's wide open for a touchdown, and Jayden Daniels just didn't realize it. No one took Luke McCaffrey on this play. This is another brilliant aspect of using motion and movement pre-snap against these match defenses, especially when there's 4 receivers to one side, because this changes your entire rules.
True. Great point. I love that. That was a great detail.
And yeah, you can
look at McFadden. He has to cover so much ground there to chase him down. Like Daniels, I'm telling you, man, he would house that so often at LSU. Such a good play by McFadden. I know it didn't matter because it got called back by a holding, but still, that's the point. Like he's smart, tough, and dependable. He'll make that play. He'll put that effort in right there.
Absolutely, man. That is smart, tough, and dependable. Good job, Joe Shane. Yeah. And then following
this play is so devastating.
So here we are with the this is 3rd and 18. This is the play where Drew Phillips.
Pause this for 1 second. Before you break this down, I just want us to understand how devastating this truly is. This is a 3rd and 18 with 20 seconds left from the Giants 43. The Giants end up giving 7 points on this.
It's terrible.
This is insane. Like, this is the type of detail. This is the type of non-complimentary football, the type of stupid shit that losing football teams do.
Yeah, absolutely. And what pisses me off even more about it, after that holding penalty that gets called back and zaps some of that momentum, the next 2 plays were just excellent efforts by Brian Burns. Brian Burns gets that PBU. He's right in Jayden Daniels' face. It could have been a quarterback hit. He's patient, and then he just gets his hand up there and he knocks it down. And after that, it's a running play to try to get in a field goal range. Brian Burns just throws a tight end aside, collapses the C gap, and makes the tackle. And now you set up a 3rd and 18 after it was a 1st and 20. Excellent by Brian Burns. And then this happens, and we'll roll it right here. It's tough, man. I feel bad for Drew Phillips because he's such a damn good football player, but you can't miss this is like the jaggiest of jag receivers. Diami Brown. Are we kidding me? Diami Brown to the flat, and Drew Phillips misses the tackle. I was sure.
He was like a vertical receiver at UNC. He wasn't even like this, like after the catch kind of guy.
I know, man. And I mean, it's a good move by Diami. It's very tough. And you could see from the you can see from this angle. Look, everybody's getting chipped. They're getting into their routes. Drew Phillips coming down from depth, and it's Isaiah Simmons, man. You can watch him right on the screen right now. He's chugging. How many times do you see a linebacker or a player who's at the line of scrimmage? He's quarterback spy on Jayden Daniels on a certain 18, right? How many times do you see these guys mail it in? Isaiah Simmons played 6 snaps in this game. And I'm not saying he should play more because I do think he's a limited player, but he's excellent in the role that the Giants have him in. And I would like to see him in more snaps, but that means the Giants have to be in more positive situations, right? He takes a step, then he starts coming right at Jayden Daniels. He's engaged with an offensive lineman when the ball comes out, and he still hustles, man. You never see this, dude.
That is crazy.
That's a big hit too. Wrap up, but that's a great play from Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter, man, because what happens on the next play? 6 seconds left. 6 seconds are left with one timeout Washington has. They're just taking one shot at the end zone, and they align empty set, 3 receivers to the side. It's cover 4, and I don't know what Deonte Banks is doing to sink on that.
I don't know what he's doing there. How does he get beaten that way? The one thing you can't do, you have help to the inside. What are you doing, dude?
You have 2 guys to the inside, man. It's a 3 receiver look. Maybe they thought maybe it could have been 3 verts to that side. Still, you have 4 defenders on that hash. One of them is underneath, as you can see. Oh, man, it's a good route by Terry McLaurin, but you just got to be more disciplined. You just got to be more disciplined. You can't get your feet tied up like that. You can't allow the receiver to win outside. Look how much space he has. It's outside the numbers. That's where Deonte Banks is. And Pinnock's just chilling. It's just such a bad rep. And then what pisses me off even more is this. It's just no defense at the catch point, man.
Yeah. Once you get beat, at least have the potential opportunity to make the recovery and to get, play the ball, right? He's not playing the ball. He never plays the ball.
It's tough. It's tough. Tough
yeah,
for Deonte
make it more difficult at the catch point than that.
100%, man. 100%. Here's another blown coverage by the Giants that was not capitalized on.
Yeah, this is the one I was talking to McLaurin. Yeah.
Back of the end zone, man. McLaurin is just chilling, dude.
Even earlier. They just didn't get him the ball there on that. They missed that. Jayden missed that one.
Oh, yeah. He's wide open on this play.
That's kind of what I mean, though, about the pass. Like, were we really close in this game? Or, were the Washington slow playing us and they didn't even connect on all their opportunities? They didn't need to win this game.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Flott just passes him off. There's no safety taking him. Flott goes to the flat along with Micah McFadden. And Newman had no idea he was even there, dude.
Can't believe we got here.
Yeah, I know. It's the third.
Dude, we're 2-7 or worse 6 of the last 8 seasons. It's just a disgusting stat. It really is despicable that we've been through this as a fan base, and that just keeps happening over and over again like a fucking Groundhog Day cycle.
I know, man. Bill Murray.
Disgusting.
Here's a 3rd and 9. Giants get caught blitzing. They bring 5, and we saw this all throughout the season, Dan. When the Giants bring multiple rushers, 5 or 6, they will have a safety on a running back or a tight end from massive depth. Washington's an empty. Austin Eckler helps out. He chips, and then he releases underneath, and Tyler Nubin took his initial steps outside of the number 1's release, thinking Austin Eckler was going to the flat, and Austin Eckler just goes in the middle of the field. This is man coverage with a blitz. You can see how much space, if you're watching on YouTube, Austin Eckler has on this 3rd and 9. And this, I don't think this is as bad as the next one we're about to go over, which was
Do you have the end zone angle of this or no?
We'll see. No.
Okay, go back to the sideline angle real quick with that play. I just want to bring up an example of what I mean earlier. You can pause it there if you want. What I mean earlier, it doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna you can roll back whatever you want. What I mean earlier when I say that watching Jayden Daniels, it just looks very effortless. It looks very calm and collected at all times. He has pressure coming up the arc from Azeez Ojulari. He feels that early, but he doesn't make the decision to step up into this pocket or into the pressure. He just kind of resets a little, glides backwards, and gets the ball out. And that's like the difference in a lot of these games. Like that right there, like not panicking in that spot and just kind of creating your own little space you need to create by drifting a little bit and getting the ball out. And it looked effortless to me. It doesn't look like this is a lot on his plate. It doesn't look like he's in panic mode at any point during this play at the quarterback position. It doesn't look like he's frantic. It just looks like he knows what he wants to do here and he's in full control over it. It's just tough to watch.
Yeah. Must be nice to
It's
watch.
tough to watch.
Washington fan.
Yeah, it's not tough to watch for them. It's amazing to watch for them. It's tough for me to watch.
Yeah. So close yet so far. Here's another blown coverage by Tyler. This was the dagger that I was referring to.
Oh, yeah.
205, 2nd and 9. Look, play action pistol. Jayden Daniels hits that back foot half roll, which we've seen Daniel Jones run, and Newbin gets lost. He loses the deep corner route. Look at another condensed set. Everything's inside the numbers. Yeah, that stack, clear out Deonte Banks. Newbin has to sink underneath and stick with this corner route. He sees the release valve coming out of the backfield and absolutely loses this player, and it ends up being a first down. On 2nd and 9, the Giants come up with an incompletion. It'll be 3rd and 9, one-score game. Giants could realistically drive down and steal the victory against Washington. But as you've saw throughout this podcast, man, the Giants, they had a lot of blown coverage on the back. It looked like training camp out here.
Yeah, this was the worst game from that standpoint, from the communication and the secondary standpoint.
Yeah, Olamide Zaccheaus. What are we doing? And that's it.
I wonder if that has anything to do with just this team has seen them already, Cliff Kingsbury and Jayden Daniels, and they've been able to adjust a little bit to what Bowen's running. I don't know, man. All I know is the frustration level is at an all-time high for you and I as we go through another loss, man. I can't believe they're 2-7 this year. I didn't have high expectations for this year. I know you didn't either, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. It's surprising.
I thought they'd win more games.
Sure, same. I didn't think they would lose this many games, especially when a lot of the things have come to fruition as far as the offensive line is playing much better and the pass rush is playing much better. It just seems like they make stupid mistakes as a team that hold them back from winning games over and over. We've been saying that for so long.
If it's not one thing, it's another too.
And if that's the case, though, like how high do we have to be on this coach? That's the problem I have. That's the problem with all this. But
100%.
We'll get to more of that in the mailbag. We'll do some 30,000-foot view stuff in the mailbag this week. But for now, let's wrap up with some superlatives here. I want to know your unheralded player on tape.
Bobby Okereke. I felt like he had a damn good game for all things considered against this rushing attack, and that quarterback needed to be incredibly disciplined. And he met Eckler at the line of scrimmage multiple times and had some big tackles to stifle the rushing attack. So I'm going with Okereke.
I think I could be Okereke. I went with McFadden. I think a lot of people could potentially be in the mix, or both those guys could potentially be in the mix there. Flop, potentially even. Highest effort player.
Could be McFadden. I know that's your guy. I'm going to go with Brian Burns, who just every game he's out here giving it his all. And I know people don't want to hear it because he didn't have a sack in this game. But Brian Burns he literally puts it all on the line every single game, battling through injuries. He is a good New York Giant to have. It sucks that he went from the shitty Carolina Panthers to the shitty New York Giants. That sucks for Brian Burns, but he's a damn good football player.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you see after the game, Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence have that like in-depth conversation. The media asked them both about it, and they're both just kind of like, I don't want to get into what we said. And Dex is like, don't even ask me about this stuff. And I could just see the disappointment on their face. It's tough for me, Nick, because I'm like, they have some of the guys that fit this tough, smart, dependable, like the guys you want as leaders. Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence are two guys who are clearly in that bucket, right? They care a lot about this. They don't want to be losing. They're so sick of the losing. But, like if the whole team doesn't buy into that, it's tough to win. The margins are so small in the NFL. So it's just frustrating for me, for these guys. And they're just going to have to, unfortunately, suck it up and deal with it. They know the season's over at this point. And they're just going to have to look forward to next year as far as winning games goes. Now, they might get some wins this year, dude. Now the Giants are playing a Cooper Rush Cowboys most likely, which is going to be interesting. The Giants should be able to beat a Cooper Rush Cowboys team, to be quite honest.
Go back to them from a couple of years ago.
Sure, you're right. They should. I don't think they necessarily will, but they should be able to beat a team.
Cowboys aren't the same team they were a couple of years ago. Either.
That's what I mean. Yeah. This Cowboys team has other problems outside of just going from Dak to Cooper Rush. But Look, it's going to be tough for these guys. They're going to have to deal with it. Unfortunately, Dex and Burns, given all this effort, putting all this in. Burns is playing clearly hurt. Doesn't matter. They can't win football games right now. Best player overall on tape for you?
Dexter Lawrence still. No, he didn't do all that much statistically, but dude, such a load. Dictates double teams the entire game. And if he's not, he's resetting that line of scrimmage. Felt like he had a lot of good run stops as well. So Dexter Lawrence.
Well, Dexter Lawrence won this award from us about 95% of the time last year and through this year. I think if we're just being honest with the film, he basically should be winning it almost every game, if not Brian Burns. So he wins it for me as well. I was looking at it. I was like, he is the best player on tape every single game based on some of the things you just mentioned, even the games like this one where the stats aren't there. Player you expected to see more from?
Tyler Nubin. I know it's weird saying that about a rookie, but this was
Sure.
a uniquely bad performance for a player that is typically reliable, even as a rookie. But these kind of things happen. It's not a referendum on him whatsoever. I still remain very high on Tyler Nubin, and I'm sure he'll learn from this experience.
I went with Deonte Banks. We kind of discussed at length already, so I won't get into that. Pass rushing 1 through 10.
1.9.
Oh,
A lot of that was game plan dependent.
Yeah.
Yeah, was not good.
But a lot of it is game plan specific. But when you blitz as much as the Giants blitz and you're still not generating any pressure, it's bad. I went with a 0.8. I don't think it could get much worse than this. And I'm not necessarily even blaming players for that as much as I'm blaming just, I don't know. It's hard to say what is the blame for it, Nick, but I know the product of what we got, which is
I think a lot of
shit.
Yeah, I think a lot of that blitzing though was against the run.
It was run blitzing, which is good. You can give them credit for good calls, but there were just blitzes that I saw that just did not go anywhere and just were totally
I get that.
fooling. Yeah, so it's just like, and then 4-man rushes weren't getting there. So bad one for me. How about run defense grade?
5.1.
Yeah, there were good plays in the run defense, and there were really bad plays. So I think the average is fine. I'll go with a 4.9.
Well, it actually is blitzing. 60% of the dropbacks was the stat.
But
like again though, like to me, and maybe it's because the football was coming out of his hands so quickly. It didn't like I've watched the Giants have those with Wink Martindale have those uber aggressive game plans. It didn't seem like that with this one, but
no.
60%.
This is like the most aggressive Bone will get, but it's still not anywhere near the least aggressive that Wink Martindale.
60% is a lot too, man.
It is a lot. Yeah, it is a lot more than we thought even. All right, thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please hit the like button. Please comment a little bit. Get it rolling. Get the algorithm helping out us as we can help out you. Mailbag coming later this week at some point. Oh, we also do have, I forgot, Nick, we have another podcast coming this week. So we actually have a lot of content coming this week. That other one is going to be a surprise. I think you guys are all going to be excited about it when we get to it and when we run it. So I'll just let that one be a surprise, but very good content ahead this week. Thank you for locking in with us as we lock in with you. Hopefully better days are ahead. I can't imagine how many times I've said that on this podcast to the fans, Nick. I feel like I've said that line so many times. But as Eli Manning actually said, it can actually always get worse, which I don't want to look at it like that, Nick, but God, man, I don't know how to feel positive right now about this team, but life rolls on and we will too. So have a great rest of your night or week and we'll talk to you soon.